This is a hilly area as hills are thought of as having low altitude and rounded tops. Mound, hillock, tor, knoll, hummock, hillside, hilltop, foothills, rolling hills, sweeping hills, undulating hills, hills and dales. The windows open to a panoramic view of rolling hills stretching into the horizon. They pitched a tent on the luxuriantly green hillside, dotted with grazing sheep. The shed stands on the summit of a rocky hillock. On his way uphill, he could not help but stop a moment to drink in the tantalizing view of the gently sloping terrain lying drenched in the morning sun. This is a thickly wooded valley. Gorge, ravine, canyon, basin, gully, dale, vale. She gazed at the small cottage nestling in the pristine valley below and said to herself, "Fortunate are those who get to call it their home." We followed the river as it meandered its way through the deep gorge. The quaint tower stood upon a knoll overlooking a narrow, sinuous valley. This is a jagged mountain range towering over a tranquil lake. Highlands, ridge, summit, crest, crag, slope, precipice, mountain peaks, mountain range, mountain trail, basin and range, mountain side, mountain top, mountain pass. She took a deep breath, enjoying the clean mountain air, and watched the fog rolling down the lofty peaks. The alpinists trekked across the craggy terrain en route to the base camp, admiring the imposing beauty of the mountain massif that rose majestically in front of them. As they rode across the crystal clear lake, the rays of the setting sun shone beatifically on the rugged mountain tops. This is a snow-capped mountain range. Glacier, crevasse, avalanche, snowfield, snowpack, moraine. They began their ascent to the summit and braved the frigid winds as they crossed the heavily corniced terrains. They rode a gondola lift and were treated to a phenomenal view of the heavily glaciated northern face of the mountain. The alpine mountain loomed on the horizon, its precipitous ridges and intricately creviced face laden with glistening snow. This is a terraced landscape full of vibrant greenery. Lush green, grassy, green, luxuriant, verdure, verdant, lush foliage. Set against the backdrop of a sweeping valley with lush green foliage, the tall poplars stood with their leaves rustling in the wind. It was thoroughly refreshing to go on a boat ride across the placid lake flanked by rich verdure. This is a forested landscape. Dense forests, foliage, undergrowth, timber, tropical rainforests, impenetrable jungle, canopy of trees, forest trail, forest edge. As the feeble sunlight struggled through the dense canopy of trees overhead, he put his feet gingerly on a huge mossy log and climbed over it. He plodded on, pushing away overgrown branches and skirting around brambles. The thick undergrowth on the forest floor was still damp and slowed him down considerably. This is a woodland, as it is something in between a dense forest and an open grassland. The woods, wood, coppice, thicket, copse, grove. We found ourselves in a beautiful and dreamy wood of pine trees. The setting sun, cast a hue of orange and yellow on the imposingly tall pine trunks and the carpet of pine needles under our feet. The pervading calm was soon shattered by the merry giggles of the children who were running around collecting pine cones. The bright red cabin stood in stark contrast to the tall, slender coppices of chestnut and the dark, twisted clumps of coppiced oak surrounding it. The walk through the woods had a calming effect on me. The cheerful yellow honeysuckles seemed to welcome me by swaying their trumpets in my direction. The sweet, heady scent of the vividly colorful wildflowers, coupled with the music of twittering birds, was soothing beyond description. This is a sunny meadow with little yellow buttercups. Grassland, green meadow, open meadow, pasture, sunlit meadow, field. I sat under a tree and let my eyes run over the expanse of the rich sunlit meadow. Its golden, green and yellow tapestry was dotted with the glossy brown of the supple coats of grazing horses. The sounds of a nearby babbling brook making its way cheerily across the pasture and the occasional melody of a distant lark buoyed up my spirits. Nature had indeed been bountiful in creating this idyllic scene. This is a countryside scene. The country, rural area, farmlands, homesteads, village, country lane, fields, farmhouse, rusticity, huts, barn. She loved the rustic charm of her scenic little hometown. The sight of the thousand sparkling diamonds of sunlight dancing in the waterlogged paddy fields, the snow white of the egrets complementing the endless shades of green, and the ducks gliding across the pond filled her heart with joy. This is an arid desert. Sand dunes, oasis, sandstorm, cactuses, flat and barren, endless desert, scorching desert, sandy desert. The caravan trundled across the monotonously empty and vast expanse of the searing desert. It glided down enormous sand dunes that rose like silent sentinels in its path. The travelers were deluded by mirages as they braved the relentlessly harsh terrain and the sweltering winds. This is a parched land, dry, sun-baked, bleak, bone-dry, sere, stark and bare. He returned to find his village withering under the influence of a prolonged drought, which had left every plant wilting and every surface cracked. The stifling, blistering heat of the sun had rendered the once green and bustling settlement into a dismal and uninhabitable land. This is a featureless moor. Heathland, grassland, bog, marsh, wasteland, desolate moor. They drove across the misty, yawning moorland and for hours could see nothing but heather and rough grasslands interspersed with rhododendrons and lofty flowering blueberry bushes as far as the eye could reach.